Good morning. So I thought I would start by giving you a little background on my retail career and my path to Tuesday morning. And for the students in the back, this is really focused on you because I was you. And that's really why I want to tell the story. So my retail career started right out of college. I was playing Division I college basketball in Washington State, and my focus was basketball. My plans were to go into sports marketing. A group of students and myself started an entrepreneurship program at our school, and I was speaking at a national conference, and afterwards this nice gentleman comes up to me, and he starts talking to me about our joint love of basketball. So after about an hour, he says to me, "Do you have a Walmart store?" And I said to him, I've never been in a Walmart. I know that sounds crazy for everybody in the room, but we did not have a Walmart in Spokane, Washington at the time. And I said, I haven't. And he said, have you ever considered going to work for Walmart? And I said, no, I'm going to go into sports marketing. I had big plans. I had a year left. I had redshirted, so I had a year left to play. And he said, he walks away, comes back, and hands me Sam Walton's book. He says, I want you to read this book, and I'm going to call you in a couple weeks, and I'm going to follow up with you. It was Don Soderquist, who at the time was the chief operating officer of Walmart stores. So I tell the story to people, and they're like, you made this up. Like, you sat there, and I really did not. And that really is what catapulted my career into retail. So I was one of the first buyers in the Walmart buyer training program. And I would tell you the 9.5 years that I spent at Walmart was priceless. You could not get a better retail education than those years. And what I really learned about myself with the time there is that there were two things I was really good at. I was really good at taking a category at a department that was broken and fixing it by getting in the mind of the customer. And that is truly what I loved. So when I left Walmart, I really left to join into the whole world of retail turnarounds. So Tuesday morning is actually my third retail turnaround. And I'll tell you, when they called me about the opportunity, I had actually coincidentally just been in a Tuesday morning. I hadn't been in one in probably 15 years. I'd gone with my mom, and I hadn't gone since. I had one 2 minutes from my house, and I had run in to look for something. I didn't make it past the entrance of the store. The reason is when I drove up, it was a little scary. It was scary to the place where at night you would need some kind of security apparatus, mace, something else to shop there. I walked in. It was absolutely messy. It was cluttered, and it had a certain odor that did not evoke a sense of inspiration. So when they called me, I said to myself, I love retail turnarounds. That's what I do. That's what I know. But I think this one might be too far gone. That's exactly what I said to myself. So the more they talked to me and the more I learned about the brand, there were three things that changed my mind, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. The first thing that changed my mind is the heritage of the brand. The second thing was the extreme loyalty of the customer, which you're going to see today. And the third thing is the financial health of the company. When you're going through a turnaround as large as we are working on with Tuesday morning, you have to have the financial ability to do what needs to be done. And we are very fortunate that we have the ability to do that. So I said yes, and today what I want to do is tell you the story of our turnaround. So we'll start with the growth years. And really, to tell the story, I need to go backwards and tell you about the heritage. So the company actually started in 1974. A lot of people don't realize that. So believe it or not, and I have actually researched this, Googled it and checked it, we were actually the second off-price retailer behind Filene's Basement. So Filene's was first, we were second. So there's a lot of heritage with the company. But I'll tell you, when I travel and people say, oh, who do you work for? Oh, I work for Tuesday morning. Inevitably, this is what I hear. Oh, that's that restaurant. My husband and I ate there a couple months ago. Or, oh, you've got those coffee shops. So out of 5 customers, I may run into one that actually knows Tuesday morning. So I also get asked a lot, why is it called Tuesday morning? It doesn't say what we do. So Lloyd Ross was the founder of Tuesday morning. And really, the genesis of the name was derived from his extreme disappointment of the weekend's ending. He hated the weekend's ending, and so his whole mantra was Tuesday morning was really the first positive day of the week, and that is where the name started. So the company was started in 1974, and really the reason he started it is at the time he was actually a wholesaler, and he was selling high-end gifts and home products into the department stores. And what happened is he found that he always had excess product, and he didn't know what to do with it. And so he created the whole idea of pop-up stores before it was a buzzword. So what he would do is he would go rent a little bit of space, he would sell off his excess inventory, and then he'd go and do it again when he needed to. So our first permanent store location actually didn't even open until 1979. And then in 1984, the company was so successful that he took it public. So this is a picture, I love this picture, I actually have it hanging in my office. This is a picture of one of our early store concepts, and it absolutely describes what he did. So even when we opened a permanent store in 1979, we were only open 4 times a year. And so what happened is he would collect, he'd go to suppliers all over the country, he'd collect all this high-end excess merchandise, he would hold it, and then he would do these pop-up locations. And I will tell you, there would be hundreds of customers in line waiting to shop the store. And you guys have heard the old adage of stack it high, let it fly. That's exactly what he did, is he just literally cut open the boxes, and you can see that the women just went crazy. The other thing that he was really ahead of the game on is the idea of loyalty. So he had this idea that if he can get hundreds of customers to stand in line at one of these events, how can he create loyalty with them? So he created what's called the Perks card, which we still have today. And what customers could do is they could sign up for it, and they would actually get an invitation to shop the sale 3 days in advance. And so it was 1.5 million customers in a very short amount of time that signed up for this. So the other key part that he did is he was doing direct mail and advertising very early. And he called it a green card. And I'll tell you, when I first started with the company, the buying team kept coming to me and talking to me about these green cards. And I was like, I do not know what you are talking about. Like, I am completely lost. And because it is just such a part of the heritage, they literally had to explain it. But it was a green postcard that he would mail out to tell people about the event. And the whole idea is everything that he sold at the time was 50 to 80% off of department store and specialty store prices. And that's really what drove the excitement and the traffic. So the other thing that we were really good at doing back then is we would go into a distressed situation of a high-end brand, and we would buy anything that they needed us to buy and sell it off for them. So the one on the left, you guys are probably familiar, is a high-end cookware brand called Le Creuset. This was, I will tell you, because I looked at the numbers, when we did this deal, it was amazing what we sold in a day. And so at that time, it really wasn't about the breadth of SKUs, because remember, we were only open a couple times a year. It was really about finding the deal, the great deal, and making it so compelling that those customers line up at the front of the door. So as you can see, the concept caught on. So in just a span of 18 years post going public, the company grew to $900 million. So it was this crazy little secret following of customers that, and if you talk to those customers that shopped us at that time, they will tell you this, that it was their little secret. They would show up for every single one of these sales to be standing in line to buy the deals, and it was very successful. So if you break Tuesday morning into 2 distinct periods, because really pre-2013, there was really 2 different periods of Tuesday morning. 2001 to 2005, I would think of us as like a flash event seller. We weren't open that often. We had a very narrow assortment, very deep buys, all in home and high-end gift. And then 2007 and 2010, we transitioned to being open close to every day, still not every day, and we layered on apparel. What's interesting is if you look at 2001 to 2007, we doubled the store count and we grew sales by $300 million in the span of 6 years. So, and this is an important point as I talk forward, so you can see the recipe was working, right? And you know the old adage of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It wasn't broke, but I'll show you what happened to it. So we call the years of 2008 and 2013 the transition years. We don't actually really call that. We have a much harsher term for it, but I decided not to publicly say it because, so we call it, the nice way I say it is the transition years, but we really went through a massive, massive change in the business, not for the better. So if you remember back to 2008, and those of us that were in retail in 2008, and the downturn of the economy, there was really two paths you could choose. And I'll tell you, every retailer had to choose the path. Path number one was, you could be like a turtle, right? You go inside your shell and you just hunker down and you ride out the storm. So a lot of retailers chose to do that. They did cost cutting and they just wrote it out because everybody knew that it would end. Choice number two that a lot of people chose, and unfortunately Tuesday Morning chose, is let's try and grow through this. Let's try and fight and grow through the recession. And really, the thought process of the management at the time is to do that. There were really three things that they did. The first thing is they decided to go head-to-head with their closest off-price competitor by layering on apparel categories. And keep in mind, our heritage is all about home. Second is aggressively grow the real estate portfolio with inexpensive short-term locations. And then third, fund these investments by managing costs in the infrastructure. So hold back growth in the infrastructure to fund both the growth in apparel and the growth in real estate. So this is what happened. Every single store kept their core home assortment, that was the heritage of the brand, and layered on all of this apparel. So, and even when right before I started with the company, this is what you saw. So if you went in a Tuesday Morning, the front of the store was full of apparel racks with children's, women's, intimate apparel, shoes, you name it, in addition to the home categories. The problem with it is the average selling square footage of a Tuesday Morning store is 10,000 square feet. That's not a big store. That's not Walmart size. So when you layer in all those categories on top of what we already did, you put that together and you get a cluttered and packed store. It also was very messy, very hard to shop, and to the associates' defense, very hard to manage. So that's where you got the bad odor, that's where you got the messy floors. The other key part that happened during this time that we've had to undo is because the focus turned to apparel, we lost sight of our supplier relationships in our core home business. And I'll tell you, the off-price world is fairly new to me, but it is a very different business model. And the supplier relationships are critical to your success, and here's why. The majority of the inventory that we buy is opportunistic, right? So a supplier gets in a pinch, and they call us and they say, hey, can you help me move this inventory? If you don't have those supplier relationships, you are not top of mind, and they don't call you first. That inventory goes somewhere else. And so what happened during this time is we were so distracted with all the craziness of apparel that those supplier relationships slowly disappeared. So the other piece of the strategy during this time was what I call quantity, not quality. So you look at this and you go, wow, that must be where their truck pulls up and they unload freight. Look at that. It even has the brand. No, that's the front door of one of our stores. So you can see the dock on the left. You can see the dock on the right. So our customer drives around the building and goes into that. And that really was, it was all about at that time, it was just about going to get the cheapest real estate that they could find. So here's another example. So I don't know how many of you know the Atlanta market, but that store on the left with the beautiful green awning is in Buckhead, Georgia. Buckhead, Georgia is an extremely high-end, affluent area, and that's our store. I've been to that store many times. It even gets better. It's got the green awning, and then when you walk in, you actually go into a basement. It's great. I told him it looks a little bit like Poltergeist. But that's what we have in Buckhead, Georgia. The other scary thing that happened, and when they said this to me when I started, I did not believe them. I didn't. We had, and I'm not going to say the number, but we had a scary amount of our 800 stores that were on month-to-month leases. So let me play this out for you. So here's how it happens, and it was happening this way, is you walk into your office any given day, you open your mail, and there's an eviction notice. You have 30 days to get out of this store location. I don't know how you run an 800 store chain with that kind of risk over your head. So the other issue we had is, I said we started the chain on high-end gift and home products. Our customer matches that. She's a higher income customer. These store locations that you see here are not in demographics that match her. So we put stores in demographics that were not core to the brand. So here's the result. You get what you ask for. So this huge, huge growth in sales that we saw in a very short amount of time, we lost it very quickly. And I will tell you what's interesting, and this number is crazy to me. In the span of 5 years, so 5 years, we grew the store count by 100 stores and dropped $100 million in revenue. And so I have also Googled that, to see if I could find anybody else that has done that, not that we should be proud of it, and has survived, and I could not find anybody. So I still keep looking, but I haven't found anybody. But that was a massive drop in a very short amount of time. The profit followed suit, not surprising. So you can see the profit dropped off dramatically. So now fast forward to 2013. Here's what happened. We had a retail activist investor see and believe in the potential of the brand, like a lot of us do. He came in, like good retail activist investors do, and bought a good percentage of the company, shook up the board, and changed out the management team, and brought in a whole new management team, myself included, that had extensive retail background. And really, that's where the turnaround began. So if my team was here, they would tell you, I say this all the time, probably too much. What I always tell them, because in a turnaround, everything is low-hanging fruit. Well, in a turnaround, actually, the fruit's just on the ground. And it is everybody wants to just go pick it all up. And what I always tell our team is retail is not brain surgery. We did not go to school to be brain surgeons. Do not overcomplicate it. And although retail, how people shop is evolving, which we've heard a lot about yesterday, how they shop, where they shop, the way they shop is changing, the fundamental principles of what makes a retailer successful hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. No matter all those other things that are changing, that hasn't changed. The fundamental principles of knowing your customer, making sure the product is right and the right value, making sure it's a shopping experience that is enjoyable and relatable, and having service that exceeds our expectations. That is the key fundamental for any retailer and for any customer. And so as we went through this, what I wanted to make sure we did first is that we did the basics. So what we started with is we got out of all of those categories that were not core to the brand, that we shouldn't have been in them. That was painful. It was very painful. I don't recommend doing it very often in your career. But we exited all of the non-core categories like apparel. The other thing we did is reestablish core supplier relationships. My first 6 months on the job, I don't think I was in the office. I think I was in town maybe on the weekends. And I was like a traveling salesperson, which in my career, having worked for Walmart, it was always the opposite. A supplier came to you, I had the checkbook, and they were selling me because I wrote the check. No. I literally was knocking on doors to suppliers, and they were like, are you kidding me? Do you know what we went through with you? And so I had to tell the story, and I had to say, look, the story I'm telling you today is a story that I had to tell them. And it took a lot of months of rebuilding those relationships, of giving my suppliers my cell phone to call me 24 hours a day, whatever was needed to rebuild that. The other thing we did first and foremost was change the product quality. We had disappointed our customers in that. What they expected from us is not what we were providing. So we focused on the product first. And then alongside that is we brought in expert talent across the organization. So the merchandising team at that time was kind of a mixed group. We had tenured merchants that had a lot of closeout experience that absolutely were going to be able to manage a turnaround, and then we had a lot that weren't. And so what we did is we brought in a lot of new. We paired them with the closeout buyers, and it created a perfect blend. And that really is what started and got us going from a momentum perspective. And then the other thing is we improved process and discipline. So I'll tell you one story related to that So I showed you where the buyers used to go buy like $1 million worth of a deal. So when I first started, they would come in my office and they'd say, Melissa, we sold $1 million in that green card. Okay, well, what was your sell-through? We sold like 20% of it. Yeah, I'm not sure the math works on that. There was just no discipline across the organization as it related to processes and P&L management and financials and all of this. When I say it out loud, it sounds like, well, that's Retail 101, but that's really what we started with the organization. And then last, but certainly not least, is we went on a massive push across the chain to clean up the stores. And when I say clean up the stores, I'm not saying we did new flooring, we didn't go do new signage. I'm literally saying we cleaned up the stores. So we really went out there and trained the store managers, and it sounds crazy, it is not okay if you have product on the floor. It is not okay if you have not had your floor cleaned in 15 years. It is not okay that you have 10 lights burn out in the store. So we had to create this different. And to the associates' defense, they didn't know any better. That's what they'd lived in. So we had to create this mantra of you have to see your store through the eyes of the customer. And if you would not shop here, then you need to make sure that you fix it. So part 2, I am very, very passionate about. And you've heard a lot about it in the last day or so. So we got the basics done, and then of course, like any good organization, everybody wanted to start to run. Let's run, let's change the brand and do everything we should do. But I really, really, really felt strongly we needed to first ground ourselves in the loyalists and who our main loyal customers were. So we can all think of retailers, without naming names, don't need to name names, who have gone through a retail reinvention and left their loyal customer in the rearview mirror. It happens too often, and we could not do that. So the first thing that we did is we went out and said, okay, who is that loyalist? Who is she? We also went out and said, who was a loyalist that we lost during these crazy, messy turmoil years? And what we did is we actually took them across the country. We went to different markets in the country, and we took them on shop-alongs. And we took them in some newer stores, we took them in some older stores, and we just heard what they said. And I actually did go to all of them just because I was still learning the brand, and it was fascinating. And then the last piece we did is we conducted a larger survey based on brand perception and awareness to understand what the overall brand health was. So here's what we found out. Our core loyalist, not surprising, is 90% female. I get stopped a lot at things from women, always women. I've never been stopped by a man, actually. I don't know why that is, who has shopped our stores. So it's 90% female. Skews a little bit older, so age 50 to 74. What's surprising, though, is look at that average income. So if you look at total retail average income is around $50,000. The average income of our loyalists is $100,000 plus. And I didn't put the stat on there, but 26% of our loyalist customers have a home value of $400,000 or higher. So now think back to the real estate pictures I showed you, connect these two, and see how that works. The other really interesting statistic that it didn't even dawn on me was 20% of our customers shop more than one store. And I'll tell you, that is really high for retail. Most times a customer has their store. Well, she shops multiple stores for the treasure hunt, which I'll show you in a minute. So I think that's one thing for me to talk about the passion of the loyalists. I think it's another thing for you to see it. So let me show you a clip of just one of our loyalists.
I imagine myself as a pirate. I'm scouring I'm not on the high seas, I'm on the high Isles in Tuesday morning, and I'm scouring the Isles and getting all my bounty that I can bring home with me. It was just hilarious when you were reading. It was just, that's what I saw in my mind. That's a good thing. This is the store that I love. Yeah. This brings back to me Tuesday morning. I guess that's why I got so excited and just saw myself as a pirate scouring the Isles, for all of my bounty that I was going to bring back home, or booty as they call it, or whatever.
So she's one example, but I could tell you she's not the only one. And I'll tell one story, and I don't know if she's in here, and hopefully she doesn't mind if I tell the story. So I was at dinner 2 nights ago, and I was walking out, and this nice lady came up to me, and she's like, I had to come find you. I love Tuesday morning. So she is a doctor. She retired 6 months ago. She's involved with the University of Arizona. And she told me, she said that she would actually write in her day planner Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. so she would remember to swing through, because she knew the truck came with the new goods, so she would remember to swing into the Tuesday morning on the way into work. And I asked her, I said, well, how did you feel during those years of the messy, the dirty? And she said to me, she's like, it was messy, it was dirty, but I love the brand and I love the product, and I just looked past, and she loved the associates, and I looked past it. And I'll tell you, after talking, because on these focus groups, you're not supposed to go in, you're supposed to stand behind the glass, blah, blah, blah. But these loyalists across the country were so excited I couldn't help myself. And the story is very consistent. And I am 100% convinced that they are the reason we didn't go out of business. And so it would be shame on us if we did not make sure she's with us as we continue to evolve the brand. So lapsed customers. We did the same thing because, you can't just have the good. You have to take a little bit of medicine on the bad. So we did the same thing with our lapsed customers. And these are customers that used to shop the brand frequently but hadn't shopped us in the last year. So keep in mind, they didn't know we changed. They didn't know we cleaned up the stores. And you will see a very big difference about what she says.
They were a great aunt.
A great aunt?
Great aunt.
Older?
Grandma.
Yeah, older, I think older.
Yeah, I mean, you think of their little knickknacks and,
Well, clutter-from person is the wrong word, but yeah, I mean, they don't market it well, so whatever.
I know
You know what I'm saying?
So would their house be
Yeah.
like that, for example?
their house would be cluttered.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you could hear it, but here's how they described us. They described us like their grandmother's house. One lady actually used the analogy of a curio cabinet. That was a dagger to my heart. And then cluttered and messy. So very, very, very different story from our loyalists. So the other thing we do is there's a common metric that most retailers use. It's called an NPS score. And what it does is it's meant to measure your brand health. So how does the customer perceive the brand and how healthy is the brand? And you can measure yourself against all other large retailers. So we had never done this, but this is something that now we'll do every year. And I'll tell you, having done these before, I have never seen a Net Promoter Score come out like this. So the overall score was not great. When we peeled it back, what was shocking is that it was both ends of the spectrum. So what the Net Promoter Score is doing, it's measuring those people that are promoters of the brand, detractors of the brand, and are neutral on the brand. 77% of our loyalists were promoters of the brand. That is high. And we looked at people like Southwest Airlines, we compared it across the way. That is a high percentage of promoters of the brand. The downside is 61% of our lapsed customers were detractors, not even neutral. Like they just don't like the brand. They speak badly of it. And the new customers were pretty balanced. So here's a dilemma it created for us, is how do we get the word out to the lapsed customers that we've changed and turn them back into brand loyalists? The issue we have is, it was very clear to me when listening to these lapsed customers, we have one more shot with them. And with our real estate strategy, our house is not in order yet. And so it'd be like having a party at your house. You wouldn't have a party at your house if your closets were falling out with stuff and the kitchen was stacked with dishes. We don't want to invite them to the party until we have the party ready to go. And then the other key dilemma of this is we know we have an opportunity to grab new customers, because when we did the shop-alongs with the new customers and showed them, their eyes were this big. But we got to be careful, because what they want and what our loyalists want is a little different, and we have to balance both ends of the pendulum. So here are the 5 key takeaways. What matters most to her is product. So in everything we heard, and whether it was loyalist or new customers, it didn't matter. What matters to her is the product and the value of that product. Store environment does matter to her. When we've been iterating the prototype. So I took the loyalists on a shop along to a newer prototype where we had made it look more like a specialty store, so wood floors. She said to the group, this is a clean store, it's beautiful, but it's not my Tuesday morning. It's not my Tuesday morning. So they want a clean store, but they don't want it to be pulled so far away from the warehouse concept that they're used to seeing since 1974, which was a big learning for us. And then she also looks at it as her local store. I kept hearing my Tuesday morning. And so that actually permeates everything we do. It permeates our customer service. It permeates our real estate strategy. We have to be careful. She looks at it as a local store, so we have to be careful how many times are we going in next to a big box retailer where it doesn't feel local anymore. And since it's her local store, the relationship with our store associates is important. And I'll tell you, that is probably one of the pieces of our secret sauce. Every Christmas, I send all the buyers out on what we call a correction of errors tour before we go into peak. So they're supposed to go out, look at the stores, look at competition, make sure we're all ready before we go into the peak selling season. I went out to the Northeast, going through the store stats. There's a store that's 2 hours away that's doing a 32% increase. Not a reload store, 32% increase. So I turned to the DM, I said, I want to go to that store. I don't care that it's 2 hours away. We show up in the store. Store looks great like a lot of our stores. I'm standing there talking to Gretchen, the store manager. Every single customer that walks in the door walks up to her and gives her a hug or says, hey, Gretchen, how's it going? That's why she was running up 32%, is because she had created that relationship with her customer. And then last but not least is she loves the treasure hunt shopping experience. That's what's important to her. Every time she goes to Tuesday morning, she wants to see something new and different. So what's next? So this is the best way to describe a turnaround. It's my favorite line for a turnaround, and it's called changing the tires on a moving bus. So when your car breaks, you get to sit it in your garage or at the mechanic or whatever, and you don't drive it while it's being fixed. When you are doing a turnaround, the bus keeps moving. Business doesn't halt just because the business is broken and you got to fix it. So it's a lot harder to change the tires when the business is actually still moving. So what we're focused on is continuing to refine the product, improving the real estate. We've made a lot of headway on the real estate. I'll show you in a minute. Improving the infrastructure. We have years of neglect that we have to fix, and we're doing it in a pace and sequence way. And then also creating a passionate customer-centric culture. That's with our store associates. That's with creating a brand voice, which we don't have, a brand look and feel, which we don't have, and really making sure that all of those work together. So this is where we are today. So you can see we've done a lot of work on the product and really made sure that I always tell the buyers, not every closeout deal is a good closeout deal. If you're not saying no, then we're probably not doing what we should be doing. So this is a big part of the strategy. The other piece that we changed to is, I told you we used to buy very narrow and deep. We changed our buying strategy to what I call broad and shallow, with the mantra of here today, gone tomorrow. So it's not a treasure hunt if you can see 8 of an item on a shelf. And, oh, by the way, if those 8 are still there 3 weeks from now. That's not really that much of a treasure hunt. So we completely flipped their buying strategy to how do we turn the goods and how do we make sure that it's always fresh and new. I want that customer coming into the store waiting for the truck. I want her, and this happens today now. They will literally wait by the back room as we push the carts out. That is a treasure hunt. So even in our legacy stores, so this is a store that's been around forever and ever, you can see just by cleaning up the stores and elevating the product, it just creates a whole other level of look and feel. The other thing too is we had kind of started to water down the closeout part of our business, and so the other thing that we did is with the buying team is really go back and train them on opportunistic inventory and how you buy opportunistic inventory. And what I always tell them is that's the foundation of the house. You go out and you make sure that you're going and finding the right opportunistic inventory. Once you've maximized that, then you can go and do product from around the globe or do product inline once you've finished that. So the other thing we did, which is going to sound very simplistic, is we actually created visual merchandising standards for both the front of the store and the back of the store, and we're actually in the process of rolling it out for the rest of the store. We don't do planograms because we flex based on the deal. And so we did create, just because it's an opportunistic deal does not mean that it shouldn't be inspirational. So we actually now publish visual standards every single week for front, back, and soon in the middle of the store. So the other thing that we've pulled back in is the heritage of the excitement of the deal. So this is a deal we ran a couple weekends ago. It's a high-end designer that put her toe into the home world. It didn't, I don't know why, but it didn't do that well. Product is beautiful, so we went in and bought it for a crazy low price. And what we did is we set it up and allowed our Perks customers to shop it 2 days in advance. And that resonated very, very, very well. So we are going to continue, you'll see us continue to evolve and do more of that. On the real estate, this is what we're doing now. So I would say the Red Door store is what I call it. That was a dock. I would say that's probably an F location. Would you agree? I'd say yeah. So we're moving the real estate to B locations. We can't afford A. So this would be a B location, and that's the focus going forward. And we're moving right now about 60 to 80 a year. And that's, I mean, for a company our size, that's a pretty big real estate program. So what's been happening, and we've publicly said this, is we take a store, we move it from F location to a B location. For now, we're even moving fixtures and all of that because we haven't gotten the prototype done. And we're seeing on average a 50% sales increase. So there's a lot of upside for us to get the real estate right. And the crazy part about it is we've not even started marketing because we're not ready. So there's a lot of momentum that we need to still build into the business. So this is the result. We definitely have seen significant sales growth. The last quarter we reported was the December ending quarter. We had, for that holiday quarter, an 8 comp. Now, that's exciting, but let me tell you, there's still a lot more. We're still in the early stages, and there's still a lot more that we have to do. So coming soon, continued refinement in the product. One of the things that came out of the focus groups from the customer that was really, really interesting to hear, and it kind of made us turn paths a little bit, is She really likes high-end brands and high quality, but she's not looking from us for the well-known brands. She wants those little niche brands that are carried in specialty stores, designer brands, and we weren't really headed that path, so that's really now kind of where we're focused is, and the word I kept hearing over and over and over from lapsed new is unique. They kept saying it's unique. And so we've really had to take the word unique and figure out what that definition is and what we need to do going forward. Aggressive movement of real estate, you saw it. We are, like I said, we're averaging about 60 to 80 a year. We still have a lot more to go. Infrastructure improvement, we started on that this year. It's a big thing to take on. We're starting with the supply chain. So we actually have already announced we're opening a new distribution center in Phoenix here shortly, and we've got a lot more coming behind that. So we're going to start with the supply chain because really that's the backbone of the product. Brand portfolio. So we've hired both a store prototype company and a new advertising agency, and we are working on the brand look, voice, and the new in-store experience. But what I will tell you is, although it will be different, it is going to be very, very, very similar to the heritage of the brand. What you're not going to see is you're not going to see Tuesday morning part 2, because that's not what our loyalists want. So we are going to evolve the brand and make it relevant to today, but using the heritage. Test and learn marketing strategies. We are very, very, very dependent on print. We still do a ton of newspaper circulars every month. I know that's like blasphemy. People are like, what? We do a lot of direct mail, but she is trained to look for that. So what we're doing is we are testing a ton of things. Like we did some really cool social things over the holiday season, but we're testing that and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater on the print side. So we're going to test and we're going to retrain her out of that crazy newspaper circular as we go. Investment in people and culture. We continue to assess. That's been an ongoing, and we've really gone out and aggressively gotten retail experts in every single thing we need. And we are very aggressive about that, and we've made really good headway there. So really, the ultimate goal when it's all said and done, so people always ask that, what's the ultimate goal? In the simplest form, the ultimate goal is to use the heritage as the brand as a springboard to create a better and more relevant shopping experience. And if you've been in a Tuesday morning, I've had a lot of you come up to me. It is a very unique shopping experience. It's probably like none other. I haven't seen another one like that, and there's good and bad to that. And what we want to do is foster that uniqueness to get more people to shop their Tuesday morning. Thank you. So I don't know if I have time. Do I have time for questions? Yeah. Okay.
My question is, you've had the demographic of this older woman. You've had the demographic of this older woman, and we do know that we die. So the question is, how are we going to go get the younger women to come on in and start to get them to be these loyalists? Are we working to get those women to bring their daughters in with them, or what's your thinking on that?
Yeah, we talk a lot about that, actually, and that's very sad that you just said it like that. But so what we're focused on is we're not going to go from 50 to 74 down to the millennials. We're not going to start there. We've done a lot of analytics work related to customers that are 40 to 50 that are not shopping Tuesday morning. And so what you'll see from our upcoming marketing strategies that we're working on is that's where we're going to go first. Because there is an interesting component that you mentioned. She does know it as her mother and her grandmother's store, and there is actually an advantage that we can use to that. So we're not going for the millennials. We're going to focus there first. I think there's one there.
Are you ever concerned that the supply of these outstanding deals has a limit, that you can continue to find the really exciting goods that draw the customers in?
No. And I'll tell you why. No. And I haven't seen it yet, but the reason I'm not is, and this is going to sound bad, so I apologize in advance to anybody that is heavily into e-commerce. What's happened with e-commerce specifically is it has actually probably created a bigger flow of excess product because a lot of people are managing their inventory separately and are still trying to gauge how much is going to sell in e-commerce versus brick and mortar, and I don't see that changing, at least not in the near future. And so for us, That's not going to change. What has changed, though, is as more people enter the off-price space, whether it be online pure play or brick and mortar, the supplier relationship piece becomes even more important, because then you're fighting with more people to be that first phone call. So that's where we're investing our time. Oh, I think there's one, yeah.
Hi, I'm very happy to hear all this because I'm one of your lapsed customers.
good.
So I'll be back. How do you differentiate the offering from that of your formidable competitor in home goods, and how much overlap is there with your customer base shopping in both places?
At the same time. So before you shop your store, we should talk so I can send you to the right one. So let's start with that, because we're still switching the real estate portfolio. So we spend a lot of time talking about home goods. We're just retail curious, so we do it for that reason. But we also ask the customers about that, even the new. They do shop both. But it was interesting, what they said to us, right or wrong, is they look at us very different. So they look at home goods as the place, if I need a lamp, I'm going to go get a lamp. For us, the way they described it is they go in because they don't know what they want. And the big thing that is a differentiator there is the uniqueness in the product and the uniqueness in the brand. So if you go in a Tuesday morning today, you're not going to probably see a lot of big name department store brands. You'll see, what you will see is you'll see those specialty boutique brands that you only find in the specialty stores. And so that's kind of where the company was founded, and that's the niche that we're moving forward with. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.